Great work over the period. And they've been conducting some polls, doing some research, speaking to the good people of Ghana. And they've put out a new raft of polls on different subjects as far as Ghana is concerned. Let's connect now with Musa Dankwa. He's the Executive Director, Global Info Analytics, also Head of Research, and he is a pollster. Mr. Dankwa, hello, good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program. And we wanted to get some further and better particulars on your latest polls. And you've been doing this for quite some time now. And so we look forward to what information it is that you always bring to us. So do tell us what your most recent poll research was conducted on.
Thank you very much for having me. This is the regular tracking poll starting 2025 that we're going to be carrying out going into 2028. These polls will be published as we did in April, July, October, and January in that cycle. We interviewed close to 8,500 Ghanaians across 84 constituencies, randomly selected, and across all the 16 regions. And again, we focused our polls on key areas that we've been kind of tracking for the past 3.5 to 4 years. The direction of the country, the approval of the president's performance, the approval or the performance of the government as a whole, perception of corruption, people's standard of living, and whether they are optimistic things will improve going forward. And then we tend to ask on topical issues trending over the period. This time we were talking about Galamsey, Dumso, free education, and also assess the performance of the IGC and the EC commissioner during the election. And then we topped it up with who people may prefer to lead the MPP and NDC going into 2028.
Now, I see that this time around for the methodology, there was a mixed mode for April 2025. So that's web and face-to-face. Can you tell us exactly what that means?
It simply means that we are going to combine two ways of collecting the data. The normal face-to-face in the field will continue, and the sample that was deployed for this face-to-face was close to 94%. Then the second mode is online. We've realized that there are certain type of voters, we don't meet them in the field when we go out there.
Right.
And those people can be found online. So in order not to have any demographic not represented, we've adopted this mode to ensure that those who are upper class and the upper middle income people who are unlikely to be in the field in the day will be captured just using the telephone or using the web service.
Certainly. Now, the questions that you pose, they're extensive. A lot of work has gone into what it is that you do, so we can't go into every single subject matter, but there were some key findings that piqued the interest of Ghanaians, especially I observed on X and other social media platforms. What would you say were the key findings for you from where you sit that gathered a lot of momentum and got a lot of tongues wagging?
I think first it's around the direction of the country.
Okay.
Majority of Ghanaians are now saying Ghana is headed in the right direction. In the past, this number has been very, very low. We have seen a dramatic shift in the perception of Ghanaians with regard to where the country is headed now. 62% said right direction and 26% said wrong direction. 12% didn't have an opinion. If you compare this to the last tracking poll we conducted in 2024, only 31% then thought Ghana was headed in the right direction. Now that number is 62, double. And at the time, 62% were saying we were headed in the wrong direction. Now that number is 26. So that is a very remarkable difference between the two periods. And then if you look at the performance of the president, how people are judging the performance of the president since he assumed office. the honeymoon period, 66% are saying that they approve the way he's doing his job as president, compared to 23% who said they disapprove, and 11% have no opinion. So overwhelmingly, again, most Ghanaians support the way John Mahama is doing his job compared to the data in last October. And then you look at the government performance. If you put the government on one side as a whole, how are they being assessed by the voters in the first 90 days? Those who said they've done excellent is 21%. And those who are saying they've done very good or good is 55%. 9% say average, and 4 is 15%. So definitely this is kind of a government that is enjoying a bit of goodwill from the people.
Right.
But we don't know how long these numbers will stay the way they are.
Right. Because it appears, Mr. Dankwa, that even with these numbers, there's been a bit of a dip. Earlier on in the year, the number or the percentage of Ghanaians who thought the country was going in the right direction, it appears that number has reduced a little bit. Am I correct?
No, if you watch, we didn't compare this data to the earlier publication because those were used different methodology.
Okay.
So we couldn't compare apples and bananas.
Okay.
But if you look at the October poll and this very poll, the only difference is about 6% online poll, and that will not make material changes to the numbers.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification on that particular point. Now, I also see here through your findings that the NDC is dominating amongst voters with jobs. Among students, the NPP appears to be losing support faster than amongst other demographics. Now, you say, however, in a shocking turn of events, NDC is now losing grounds among voters without jobs. Can you expand on that for us?
Yes. In the past, before the elections, the number of people who don't have jobs that support NDC was much higher. At the moment, it appears to be even with MPP. And I don't know what is driving that. It's something that the party must really find out, because usually people who don't have jobs tend to support the government that had just come in.
Right.
And before the election, they were quite heavy behind Mahama. Suddenly, NDC kind of affiliation, who don't have jobs, seem to have probably declined. But I don't know whether they've gotten jobs, which is not the case. I don't think they have.
Okay.
The wider population. It could be some sentiments that they are expressing to us indirectly. So there needs to be further investigation into that.
And you, this is on your X page, you say maybe a lack of push for the 24-hour economy agenda could be a reason why the youth or those that are unemployed might be straying away from the NDC.
I use the word could for a reason. I don't know. I don't have the real evidence, but it could be something that they have to look at.
Interesting. Also, the NDC, you say, now dominates, well, this according to your poll, amongst voters with all levels of education qualification. The poll continues to show that the NPP continues to lose ground amongst voters with tertiary level qualification, a development which emerged during the last 6 months of the 2024 campaign and continues after the election. And that's quite significant. Would you say that this was due to the promise of the NDC to provide that tertiary support, or is there something else at play here?
You know, these were close-ended questions, and I tried not to speculate about the reason for changes. But I think you could speculate on that basis. But remember, these are people with at least tertiary, so they have finished tertiary. They're not going to enjoy the benefit of that free tertiary policy. Okay. So that's the difference. So these people who have already gotten qualification from university level are tilting towards NDC than they've ever been.
I see.
But if you look at those with senior high, who could be, some of which could be going to secondary university, that one to NDC has upper hand of 5%. And among those with junior high, the gap is much bigger.
We also saw, according to the polls, that if there is a rematch of the 2024 general elections, the NPP is likely to win only 2 regions, and that is the Ashanti and the Northeast regions. Were there any surprises there for yourself and the team?
No, there was no surprise, because if you look at the last election results, you could see that they nearly lost Eastern region. It was close, very close. Now, in the rematch, we see NDC leading in the Eastern region, which means that they could add Eastern region to their tally if elections were held today, leaving MPP with only Ashanti region and Northeast.
I see. And also, as far as presidential candidates is concerned, if there was a rematch, the poll suggests that President John Dramani Mahama would lead with 59%, Dr. Bawumia with 35%, and others 6%. With those figures as well, any surprises there?
Not really, because what you see is that the continuous goodwill that Mahama is enjoying has added 2 more points to his numbers. And then Bawumia has dropped to 36%. But what you would see is that with regards to the 35%, with regards to the other candidates, they appear to have gone back to the same level as before the election polls, which means that if elections as we held today, they will not break heavy towards Mahama as they did, because the fear that they harbored in them in the last election is no longer present. So they will go and vote the way they intend to vote. So you see Ghana Kwambidako going up, Alan going up, and others going up. And they have done so at the expense of Bawumia, not Mahama. And that is what might be worrying for MPP.
Very interesting there. Now, this one had to do with a new generation of leaders, and I wanted to understand the distinction. I'm on the Global Info Analytics X page. So the distinction between the new generation of leaders only, and then also the NDC top 5 candidates preferred by voters. Let's talk about the new generation of leaders only. What is it that you were looking to ascertain? Is it who the NDC base would be looking to put forth as their leaders come 2028? What exactly is going on with that? We see Honorable Haruna Idrisu leading the pack there with some 37%. Break that down for us, please.
Yes. First and foremost, we were there with MPP list, but you couldn't just go there with MPP list. You'll be seen to be biased. So we have to add in another layer, which is the NDC aspect. Right. Now, what we did was that we looked at the entire potential list that could run within the NDC and see where the general voters would like to gravitate towards currently. So we had a bad view of what people are saying across the country. Right. But then if you look at the voting demography or the demography of the country today, about 70% or more of people who are voting today are below 44 years of age. And if these people are to be influenced by their own peers or by their own age, how would they vote? So if you should put aside the younger generation of NDC, where would general voters be taking towards? Okay. So we see that among every competitor that we had, the top 5 were Professor Jinana, his old generation, Abna Idrisu, nearly new generation, right. Atifortin, new generation, Ablakwa, new generation, Asirin Kesia, old generation. Old generation. And our art is new generation. Yes. Now, if you take the old generation out, how does the race look like? Okay. Then you have Abna Idrisu on top of the group with 7%, and then Atifortin on 25%, Ablakwa on 21%, and the natural Admiral 12%, and Omani Buama 4.7%. So these are the top new generation NDC potential candidates whom the public they consider.
And then when we look at the NPP side, so you say the new poll also shows voters' preference for NPP leadership looking to 2028, and you have Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia leading the pack 48.1%, and then Kennedy Ejapong following closely behind 25%. Well, not that close behind, but in second position. Are you surprised by that? I think many would have assumed that Kennedy Ejapong would have had a higher percentage or a higher share of that number, maybe even a 30% or more, maybe even a 40%. What do you make of these numbers?
One, this is early days, and early days just give you a snapshot of what is happening. And events tend to influence the polling numbers at the time that the polls were being taken. And remember, I think with Kennedy, he may have suffered from bad publicity from the case involving Anna. That's right. That could have impacted his numbers. So going forward, we have to see how these numbers trend. If they stay like this, then that could be worrying for him. But in the next 3 polls, we'll see where the numbers actually really stay. For now, this is snapshot. Snapshots are always flawed in terms of overall trend.
Absolutely, because as you say, it's also what's happening at the moment that also informs whatever decisions that are made by the individuals who are polled. All right, a few more, and then, of course, we can wrap up on the conversation. I know you have a busy morning. Now, the polls show that 64% of Ghanaians are satisfied with the budget as presented by Honorable Beatrice Adu Forson, and only some 10% dissatisfied with it. Were these also asked as close-ended questions, or were there reasons given for which it appears Ghanaians are very happy with this first budget?
No, we asked a very close-ended questions for all of these questions.
Okay.
And we asked them whether they were happy or satisfied with the budget as presented by Dr. Beatrice Adu Forson. And as you can see, 64% of voters said yes, they are happy with the budget that was read. Only 10% were not happy with it, and 20% were neutral. And that shouldn't be surprising, because if you look at the budget that was read, people who were into betting were deflated, and everybody that was against either was deflated. So this must not be surprising.
All right. Now, on the state of Dumso, and then we'll come to corruption after that. And President John Dramani Mahama, 20% of voters believe that it has worsened. That's the case of Dumso, while 34% say that has improved. Those were the figures there. Let's talk about corruption also, Mr. Dankwa. On the state of corruption, you have 56% of the individuals sampled say that it's improving. Okay, so this is from October 24 all the way through to April 2025. What do the numbers tell us as far as the perception or the state of corruption is concerned?
At the moment, majority of Ghanaians, by 56%, are saying that corruption levels are improving in the country. 14% are saying that it's getting worse.
Okay.
And 23% says it is the same, it hasn't changed. 7% did not have an opinion. If you compare this to the last October figure, this is a remarkable turnaround.
That's right.
In corruption. And when we asked them whether they believe the government is now doing enough to fight corruption, the response was yes, 69%, no, 26%, and 15% didn't have an opinion. Again, compared to last data for October, this is a remarkable turnaround for perception of fighting corruption in Ghana today.
And would you say that this has anything to do with, for example, maybe oral or the posturing of this new government when it comes to corruption? What do you infer from the responses that you got?
I think I can only speculate, just like you are inferring. That it could be due to the actions of oral and the kind of revelation that is coming out, and also the steps that is being taken if you listen to Attorney General and other investigative bodies. I think that might be influencing the perception that the government is not doing enough to fight corruption.
Certainly. And when we look at the corruption perception score, the Ghana Police continue to dominate that, with the Immigration Service coming second, the judiciary in third position. You've got tax officials fourth, local government representatives, business execs in the top 5. Let's talk about Galamsey very quickly, and then we can park it here. Now, on the question of whether Galamsey has worsened under President John Mahama, the poll shows that only 10% believe that it has worsened, while 38% say it has improved. Now, you go on to say when the data is disaggregated, the polls show that in regions where mining is carried out, 25% say it has worsened, but 28% say it has improved, resulting in an improvement of some plus 3%, which is interesting because the Galamsey issues continue to dominate, with a lot of Ghanaians still very concerned about the issue. So does that number, would you say, reflects the level of concern still in Ghana about Galamsey?
I think people are still concerned about Galamsey, and there's also an increased media hype about Galamsey as well. So it's getting the attention that it deserves. But when you test it across the country on the ground, then you see a different perception. Across the country, I think people think it is improving, plus 28%. But in the mining areas, it appears nothing has changed much. And if government wants to know how people feel, I think the attention must focus in the mining area. Their view is more objective than the views of people living in non-guaranteed areas.
They have a better perspective because they're closer to the action, as
Absolutely.
it were. Now, Mr. Dankwa, when should we expect the next polls to be released? When will you be conducting the next set of national tracking polls?
It will commence sometime at the end of June, and the report will be out in July.
Okay, so we look out for that in July. And will you be asking the same questions, similar questions, added questions?
Yes, we'll be asking, most questions will be asked, some will be dropped, but largely the key ones that we are tracking, we'll keep tracking them in terms of the rest of the country, performance of the president, performance of the government, corruption, standard of living will continue, and also ranking of corrupt perception in the country will also continue, and then the party leadership would also continue.
And my final question, this issue of sample size, is it one that continues to plague global info analytics, or would you say that following the 2024 elections, those issues have been put to rest?
I think after fighting and arguing over 2,500 sample size, we deliver the precise election results, people should go to bed with sampling size.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Dankwa. Always a pleasure. And of course, when the next raft of polls come out, we'll be looking to engage you for some further and better particulars.
It's my pleasure.
All right. Have a wonderful Monday. That was Musa Dankwa, Executive Director, Global Info Analytics. And they're responsible for a number of the national tracking polls that you and I are privy to every quarter or so. They're an independent opinion research company. And of course, come July, we'll be looking to what the numbers say. Will it be an improvement or a regression? Well, we live to see.
Think about the future children. Mankind wicked.
You can also follow Global Info Analytics, and they put some excerpts of their findings on their X page along with graphs. Very easy to follow, always full of intel if you're interested in what a bulk of the nation think of very pertinent issues. Many thanks to Musa Dankwa for joining us on the program and giving us some more flesh on the bones.
Many men shall die because of the greedy of
Of the hour 9 a.m. This is still 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. Now, last week, I believe on Friday, we spoke about this issue. It is D-Day today. Now, the Speaker of Ghana's Parliament has agreed to a request by the National Intelligence Bureau, NIB, to release two members of Parliament, and that's Mustafa Yusuf and Kwame Asare Obeng. You know him as A+ for investigations. And I say it's D-Day because the MPs have been directed to appear before NIB officials for a preliminary interaction on Monday, April 7, 2025 at 10 a.m. So just in under 2 hours or so to go. And they'll be having that meeting in Parliament, in a conference room in Parliament. Now, this is contained in a letter addressed to the Director General of the National Intelligence Bureau, dated April 2. Now, it's a subject that is gaining momentum, immunity of MPs, and what exactly that means.
She say, rise up, sons and daughters, no one is.
We put some thoughts together as to what reasons the NIB could potentially be inviting these MPs for a meeting. Now, we take a look at Kwame Asare Obeng, aka A+, and he's the MP Goma Central. Now, what we do know from sources, now, he had recently threatened to expose the identity of an ex-government official allegedly involved in Ahmed Swale's murder. Could that be the reason for that invitation? In more recent times, he put on his Facebook page that a truck carrying suspected missing cables belonging to ECG had been intercepted in his constituency. When it comes to Honorable Mustafa Yusuf, he's also been invited by the NIB. Well, he's mentioned in the National Service Authority ghost name scandal, where he once served as executive director. Is that of interest to the NIB? Is that what this conference is all about? Well, also his involvement in controversies surrounding the budget and organization of the All-African Games under his watch as sports minister. You'll recall late into last year, it was still a topic that was very much higher, especially concerning our members of parliament, security issues, and the like. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to your production team and your good self, and to our listeners.
Fantastic. Hope you're doing well this morning.
God has been so merciful.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Now, we know that today, April 7, 2025, some two MPs have been summoned, if you will, by the NIB. They'll be having an interaction in Parliament, in a conference room in Parliament, to answer some questions that we don't know. But what do you make of this invitation of these two MPs? And then we'll talk about other matters arising.
I think it's a good call, and we have to look at it in several contexts. We have to look at the constitutional and legal context, the procedural consideration, the institutional implication of Parliament as a house, and the broader democratic significance. Well, if you look at the constitutional and legal context, I think the release of these members for questioning by the Speaker represent a very significant intersection of parliamentary privilege and the rule of law. So if you look at most democratic systems, parliamentarians enjoy certain immunities. But these are typically balanced against the principle that no one is above the law. So if you look at procedurally, the Speaker decision also demonstrates certain or several important factors for democratic governance. I think to me, it affirms the principle of equality before the law, indicating that elected representatives cannot be above the law, and as such, they have to be accountable for their actions or inactions. I think it also kind of respects the independence of the investigative authorities, which I'm so happy as a security analyst, because democracies thrive on accountability, and we must demonstrate the independence of our democratic, the investigative bodies. And you see, the allegations of serious wrongdoing, including corruption, and certain issues involving criminal matters must be duly and appropriately investigated. And I think in that case, it is the right thing to do. I also believe that it maintains the proper separation between parliamentary privilege and criminal investigation, particularly in cases involving serious allegations like we are talking about.
Yes.
Now, let's look at the institutional implications, the body of parliament.
Right.
You see, it sets a precedent regarding parliamentary cooperation with law enforcement and investigative bodies, which to me I feel is key if we really want to develop our democracy. It also demonstrates the Speaker's commitment to upholding the rule of law within the parliamentary framework. And the last point I think it is significant of notice is that I think it signals that parliamentary privilege is not intended to shield members from legitimate criminal investigations. So what is the wider or the broader democratic significance of all this? You see, the willingness to allow members of the legislature to be questioned in connection with serious allegations supports the democratic accountability.
Right.
And I think as the people, we should be proud of the steps the Speaker have taken. And the Speaker appears to be striking a balance between protecting the institution of Parliament whilst acknowledging that serious allegations warrant proper investigations at the appropriate authority. There's a saying that leadership by example. So it's our own parliamentarians who make these laws. So they must be prepared when allegations of this nature are made against them. They can be properly investigated. And don't let us jump into conclusions. They are not guilty of any offense. They are just being investigated over what I would say an allegation at the moment until a court of competent jurisdiction convicts them. If you look at criminal jurisprudence, it's very clear. So it's good for our democracy, so to speak.
Right. Now, Mr. Quintin, I want to ask about this specific issue. Now, it's one that has gathered so much momentum. Everybody's talking about it. This is Honorable Intim Fojo. He addressed the press in a press conference about what he says is an alleged carrying of drugs and some currency. Now, not only is he a member of Parliament for Asin South, he's also the ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee in Parliament. Now, given that the President has directed the National Security, NIB, and so on and so forth to reach out and get further and better particulars on these suspicions, would you encourage, for example, what is happening today with the two other members of Parliament, that's A+, Honorable Yusuf, to also apply then to Intim Fojo? Should the respective security agencies write to the Speaker and then seek audience, as has been done with these two members of Parliament? Would that be the best thing to do in this instance, to put some finality to the back and forth that we are currently seeing unfold?
You see, that's the beauty of democracy. And every democracy strives on a very responsible opposition. A very responsible and accountable opposition. Truth of the matter is, the position of the Reverend Honorable Ntimfojo makes his actions very untenable, because gathering intelligence is one thing and managing things is another. And if you look at intelligence is in its own value chain, the management of intelligence is very crucial. And I think that for him to hold a press conference on allegations of this magnitude is far-fetched. At least, given his privileged position, he could have easily applied to the chairman of the committee to get to the security agencies to get relevant clarification on some of these issues. If that fails, he still had the power to get the chairman to summon the second ministers to brief the committee on these said allegations. And in that forum, he would have had every opportunity to ask the questions he so desired. But to run to the market shopping with allegations, I think is far-fetched. And you realize the minority is very quiet on this subject matter, unless the honorable member himself running from radio station to the other and TV station to the other. And I understand a lot of people have even called for his arrest. I think that will be far-fetched.
Okay, you say an arrest would be taking it too far?
It would be too far. I think, you see, he's a member of parliament. He enjoys some privileges and, I think the right thing to do is for him to eat the humble pie and apologize to the good people of this country, and we move on. Or he provides the evidence of the allegation he's talking about. You understand?
Right.
And another thing we can also do is that Parliament can decide to crack the whip by directing that the Honorable Ntimfojo to appear before the Privileges Committee and then provide this evidence. If that doesn't happen, you'll be putting parliamentary business into disrepute. You understand?
Mr. Kutin, hold that thought for me, please. Hold that thought for me very quickly, I beg your pardon, just so I can engage Dr. Rashid Draman. He hasn't got too much time with us, and then I'll come back to you, please. Doc, hello, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Hope you're doing well.
Yes, I am well, thank you. Unfortunately, like I said, I have a meeting at 9.
That's right.
So, yes.
I just pick your thoughts for the next 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll let you go. Okay. What do you make of these recent happenings? I'm referring to Honorable Ntimfojo making allegations about drug carrying in international airport. It's gathered a lot of momentum. What should the next steps be? A lot has been said about MP immunity and so on and so forth. What should we be thinking of as a nation?
I think for me, it's in order for our parliament to provide scrutiny and oversight over everything that happens in our republic. I think it's in order. But scrutiny must come backed with data and evidence. So if allegations are made, I think we would like to see the member of parliament or the minority group showing exactly like where the cocaine is, where the money, the cash is. Otherwise, I mean, the next time any alarm is raised, nobody is going to take that very seriously. So I just hope that the honorable member would come with the facts, at least because all along I've had a conversation about how, statements have been made, but they have not been backed by any data or evidence. So, I mean, he's the one alleging. Let him come out with the data and evidence, and I believe Ghanaians would be behind him. And if he doesn't have the data and evidence, then he might as well just keep quiet, because then that's not how we do parliamentary oversight. In terms of parliamentary immunities and so on. I heard, the gentleman before me raise a number of important issues. I think our parliamentarians, it must be very clear, are not above the law. And I don't think that for any reason they would, for maybe a minute, seek to project that kind of image. I think over the years, what has happened is that there hasn't been, a streamlined mechanism of making sure that they are called to account because of, the kind of immunities that they enjoy as per some of the constitutional provisions. So the Right Honourable Speaker, I remember in the 8th Parliament, sought to streamline this by working with the judiciary and saying that, look, you serve members of parliament on a particular day so that we avoid this confusion. Somebody will say, I'm on my way to parliament, or I'm doing parliamentary business, and so on. And then you also do that through the legal unit. But we saw that process abused in the dying days of the 8th Parliament for some political kind of interests. And I believe that this is a sanity that we want, so that our members of parliament, despite the privileges and immunities, get subjected in a kind of streamlined way. They have to answer. If there is criminality, there's no one, because they make the laws for us, and they have to be the first to obey the laws. So I think, what we are going to see today with Honorable Member for Asin, and then the former Minister for Youth and Sports, I think that is the right process, and I hope that this will be institutionalized, so that at least, despite separation between the judiciary and the legislature, at least we have some level of interdependence where they can work together to make sure that the rule of law and justice is dispensed fairly to members of parliament, as it would to all of us.
Certainly, Doc. Thank you so much for your quick thoughts on this. I know you have to leave us, but I look forward to engaging you at a separate time further on this particular issue. As the results come out from today, whatever happens today, we can weigh in on that further. That was Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director, African Center for Parliamentary Affairs. I still have Mr. Emmanuel Kutin, Executive Director, Africa Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism, on the line. Mr. Kutin, so you were talking about balancing oversight with responsibility. In this particular instance, has that been done? Because we also don't want to be seen to be stifling the oversight duties of members of Parliament. And this is no mean member. He's a ranking member on Defense and Interior. One might be of the opinion that if he has some intel, it's coming from a strong position. Do you not agree?
Well, unfortunately, the intel he got didn't come from the committee. He was citing different sources. I think that's why the president considered a committee for him to give him the opportunity to present those intelligence he got. But unfortunately, he went to the market shopping with that by the press conference he did. And like my senior brother, Dr. Dramani, mentioned, I think what will finally happen is for the Speaker to give some directives like he did in the instant case of the two MPs we are talking about. But with regards to Intim Forgery, it's still an active case. It's supposed to appear before the committee. If he fails to do that, or if he fails to legitimately give this intel he thinks he has to the appropriate investigative bodies, I think he will leave the Speaker with no choice than for him to give directives that he feels will protect the sanity or the image of Parliament. I also strongly believe that the minority must take a cue from some of these things. If they don't replace Honorable Tim Fojo as the ranking and security and defense. Sorry, it may hamper the work of the minority because I'm not sure the government will be willing to share certain information with him as the ranking because he has demonstrated clearly that he can manage intelligence, and we cannot reduce our security to politics. Because if there's any form of disturbance in this country, my sister, are you able to determine party A from party B? That's why, as practitioners, we've always maintained that put Ghana first when it comes to security. So it's about time we begin to set examples and streamline things because our democracy has evolved over 32, 33 years now, and we can continue to do things in the germane way some of these members of parliament are demonstrating. And I think the Honorable Man is the third member, a third-term MP. So he should know better. He has so much experience in the House. And in anything we do, we must first of all think about protecting the image of the House, the country, than political interest. And it will interest you to know that when this thing happened, apart from him talking about it, I've not heard any of the leadership within the minority talking about it. So it means that something may be wrong somewhere. Is it the case that he did a press conference without the knowledge or without the clearance from
Well, at the press conference, Mr. Kotin, there were other minority members there, actually. Even though in the video you only see him at the press conference, there were other leaders who were present.
About the leadership of the minority.
Right. You say he looks like a lone wolf in this.
Exactly. Because when issues like this come, it doesn't mean that because you are the ranking member, you have the authority to just call some few other members that tell you, I'm doing a press conference, come and sit around me. You have to fast check one, take this through the leadership of your caucus. And if they feel that there is a prima facie case to let the good people of Ghana know, why not? And before you could hold a press conference of this nature, it means that one, you have reached to your chairman for some form of clarification and you didn't get. You have triggered the process of the chairman calling the sector ministers or the heads of this investigative unit before the committee and they didn't come. And you feel that you've hit a snag. So you have to let the good people of Ghana know. And so these processes were not done. I don't think that his action is untenable. He provided evidence or he apologized. And we move on as a country.
Most certainly. Now, from a security expert standpoint, how seriously should Ghanaians take allegations of this nature? Maybe not in this particular instance, as many are still waiting for evidence, but allegations as serious as this, how interested should the everyday Ghanaian be?
You see, Ghanaians should be very interested in allegations of this nature because they are very serious allegations that have serious international reputation on the country. You realize that the UN body on drugs have even weighed into the matter, calling on the government to, as a matter of agency, probe these allegations. And we take certain things for granted. If Ghana is stuck as a heaven of drug trafficking, we, the citizens, especially those of us who have the rare privilege of traveling around the world, you'll be subjected to a lot of inhuman treatment at the various airports. And that is why it's very important that when issues of this nature come, it's properly investigated. For instance, when this government came, they did an expose at Sapima when they said they arrested a group of people in the possession of some gold and currencies in containers or so in a warehouse. Now, after that breaking news, that is the end of it. We have never heard anything. Don't the Ghanaian people deserve to know? We don't live in a banana republic where you can use political power to do as you wish. You have done a good job. You have managed to bust these criminal gangs with this substantial kind of gold and foreign currency. It was a breaking news. So the next thing this investigative body would have done after all this while is to hold a press conference and brief the Ghanaian people that, look, this is what we have discovered. These are the people we've arrested. These are legal processes we have taken them, our criminal jurisprudence. When you arrest a suspect within 48 hours, you must put the person behind before the court. Is that not it? So in which court are these suspects being tried? We don't know. Where is the content of this container? Who is having jurisdiction over it? The content, were they actual gold? Were they actual foreign currencies? How much was the foreign currency? How much was that gold worth? These are legitimate questions in a democracy. Our investigative bodies shouldn't take the citizens for granted. Now came another expose of what happened in Takrady, that they arrested a tipper truck loaded with cocaine, right?
That's right.
And the street value was about $360 million.
That's right. Very hefty.
Where are the exhibits? Who are the suspects you arrested? What is the state of the investigation? So it is about time our investigative bodies become very accountable to the good people of this country in tandem with the practice we find ourselves now, democracy. So a lot has to be done in our security sector reforms across board. Because if you look at the national security in its current form, it's so fragmented. You have national security within the police, the army, immigration, customs. And some party apparatus have also put themselves together, legally or illegally, nobody knows, in the name of national security. So more often than not, when these operations even happen, you don't know the category of people who have even gone for that operation. So granted that some disgruntled individuals or a rather drug gang have disguised themselves as national security ambassadors or these things. How are we supposed to know? That is why we must harmonize our national security architecture, make it responsible to the needs of our time.
Absolutely. Mr. Koti, my final question to you this morning, and then we can wrap it up on this very important conversation. If you had the ears of Mr. President this morning, what's that one urgent thing that you would advise him to act on immediately?
With regards to what we are talking about in the country in general.
With regards to what we're talking about, and then in the country in general, as far as security matters are concerned.
In the country as a whole, the greatest existential threat to the country is the illegal mining, Galamsey. The president should declare a state of emergency. Use our army to wipe out all these illegal miners, most of whom are not even Ghanaians, and put a temporary ban on Galamsey for at least a year. And then we can have a broader consultation, given the technology we have, to see how we can legally do small-scale mining that will benefit our communities, our youth, and the country. Now, in the instant case of what we are talking about, with the cocaine thing,
that's right.
I think the president needs to set up a commission of inquiry, a non-partisan one for that matter. He could use retired judges with impeccable credentials, sector experts in the field, and then we look at the value chains of the events that have happened over the period, so that Ghanaians can have confidence that, look, state is not kind of compromising on the activities of these drug barons. You understand? Trust is very important. And perception has everything to do with anything we do. So we shouldn't let people go to the market shopping with perception, and if care is not taken, it becomes truth. On the last but not the least is the Forgeous case. I think if the gentleman does not, within the coming days, provide those intel he thinks he has, or he comes out to apologize, the Speaker should give directives to protect the image of Parliament.
Certainly. Mr. Kutin, thank you so much for your time this morning and for helping us unpack some of these issues. Do have a wonderful Monday. And that was Emmanuel Kutin, Executive Director of the Africa Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism, helping us unpack the serious concerns around Ghana's national security, drug allegations, and institutional integrity. Time check, 13 after 9. This is still 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7.
Tell me when you're gonna run.
Thank you so much for sticking with us right here on 3FM Sunrise all the way through up until now. The conversation continues, and I've got two gentlemen on the phone lines to get into these pertinent issues. Dr. Richard Amakoba is a political scientist. He joins us on the phone lines, as well as Professor David Abdullahi, Senior Governance Advisor, African Parliamentary Network. Gentlemen, hello, good morning.
Good morning to you and your listeners.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program. I'll start off with Dr. Richard Amakoba. And Doc, again, thank you. Warm welcome to 3FM Sunrise. Before you joined us, we talked about a few hot topic items, and I want to pick your thoughts on that. Two members of Parliament. You've got Honorable Kwame Asare Obeng, popularly known as A+, as well as Honorable UC, former sports minister. They are going to be having some interaction with the NIB in a conference room in Parliament today. And a lot has been said about immunity when it comes to members of Parliament. Many people are of the view that this is a step in the right direction. I'll take your preliminary thoughts on this particular one.
Well, this is how it's done worldwide. It's not just doing it this time. And it's done because MPs should speak their mind without fear. Because they speak for the people. That's why it's done that way. But depending on what the issue is, it cannot be completely immune to everything. No. If you kill your wife, you should be arrested. If you act any criminality, you should be arrested. And so that part is there. But aside from that, if you make a pronouncement in Parliament, you cannot be stopped in any way. So that one is a step in the right direction to allow parliamentarians the ability to speak their mind. So it's a good thing.
Would you say that this process helps to balance out issues of accountability, as well as making sure that members of Parliament are not subject to, let's say, political harassment?
Well, the second point you made is more of it. For example, the last government that was in office intimidated people to the extent that 97 MPs want to remove the finance minister, and they were still not able to remove him. And then he pledged that he would campaign against him, and he did. And sure enough, many of them lost their seats. This is what is supposed to prevent. But it is not in itself. The party apparatus must also be that supportive. So if the president threatens your MPs, the party itself must support the MP to counterbalance it. Why would he do that when he's the one going out of office? Now you want to, because you're upset, what is it? Because your word is final, this is why it is there. But we don't pretty much, we don't understand what we are doing. We don't understand it, really. That's been fair. We don't understand it. And this is why they're just muddling through. It's why we constantly have problems, right? A president cannot do what Mr. Kufuor came to do. You are leaving office and you still want to dictate to the party. No. When you serve your term and you are leaving, you leave the scene and let the people themselves decide. You can still come back and be part of it, but the party does not belong to you. And this is what has happened. Intimidating people, harassing people, threatening people. It's called really party capture. That's what he did. And look at the result. Complete calamity. That's what happened.
Now, Doc, let's move on and talk about the issue concerning Reverend Intim Fojo. Now, he's raised some serious eyebrows with claims about internal sabotage and threats to Ghana's national security. He's talking about some alleged drugs and currency that he says came into the country. Should he also be a part of these meetings that the NIB will be conducting today in Parliament?
Well, if anybody, it doesn't matter your position, if you are making a serious allegation, it must be investigated. They cannot investigate it without talking to you. So it should be talked to. And if you are making such big allegations and they are not true, you have to be careful. You have to have facts to back your allegations up. So I don't see anything wrong with it. Sometimes people get intimidated, and because of that, for example, what the president said, the former president said, if you have evidence, bring it. What evidence? Am I ordinary citizens? Are we investigators? But once allegations are made, the responsibility of the government is not just based on that allegation to go and arrest someone. And it's the beginning point of investigation. Because if you didn't know that was going on, he has alerted you to it. So go and find out. And then if it is not what he thought, you come and tell us this is what you found, this and that. But don't turn around and fight with the person who is making the allegation. I don't understand it. And when that is done, it gives the impression that maybe there's something there. And indeed, there may not be anything there. So he made that allegation. Now he wants to backtrack that he was not serious or something. It is not good. This is exactly what the parliamentary rules are supposed to be.
Let me bring in Professor Abdullahi in on this particular one. And Prof, how do you assess the happenings over the last week or so? And yes, exactly a week ago, I believe it was, Reverend Intim Fojo, he's the member of Parliament, Asin South. He called a press conference alleging some wrongdoing, some drugs coming into the country and so on and so forth. As you observe how the conversation has gone, what do you make?
First of all, Reverend Tim Fojo is not above the law. Secondly, he should understand that when you make an allegation, you should have the evidence to support it. So I think calling him in by the NIB to answer questions is the right thing to do. Now, I should say that leadership is not a popularity contest. When you are a leader, you should set an example. And in this case, he's even a reverend, which is a man of God, so-called. So you should actually lead by example. And I think anybody in this country, anytime you make an allegation, whether you are a political leader or you are just an ordinary person, you have to be able to support your allegations. And I think I agree with Doc. That is exactly what should happen.
So you agree that, say, for example, today, as we're seeing Honorable Kwame Asare going into Parliament, they're going to be in a conference room with the NIB. That is the same thing that should happen to Reverend Intim Fojo, that he should be made to answer some questions and provide the evidence.
Yes. But I'm saying that, even because parliamentarians, whatever you debate or say in Parliament is covered, corruption is not one of them. But not only corruption. So, the NIB, if it has to do with issues of corruption, which I think there is an allegation on the former sports minister, they should answer questions. But I think, Ghana should start moving to the point whereby your positional power as, a politician or an MP or anything doesn't make you Lord of all creations. You should answer questions when you do wrong. That is how the rule of law is going to be fed in this country. So, yes, I support it. And I think it should be a lesson to all those parliamentarians when you just make things off the cuff without any support of what you allege. You should be holding.
Prof, thank you so much for your preliminary thoughts. I'll come back to Doc, and I want to pick his thoughts on this separate issue, and this has to do with the NPP. Now, Doc, you might recall sometime last week or the week before, former Dom Kwabenya MP Sarah Adu Asafo was set to appear before the NPP's disciplinary committee for allegedly violating a party directive that bars members from making public statements that could create disaffection for the party. Subsequently, though, that particular meeting has been called off. I understand the NPP will be holding a separate engagement on other matters. Do you think that this issue should just be laid to rest and let tempers cool down? Or does Honorable former MP Sarah Adu Asafo have a case to answer with the party?
Well, I was going to advise the disciplinary committee that they should seize this opportunity, first of all, to apologize to Adu Asafo for what has happened to her in general, and her parents and all of that. Because you need people. And don't forget, this is you used to be your senior MP, right? Don't behave as if you don't know her at all. People make mistakes. I don't condone everything Adu Asafo did. But he has suffered for the party. And we should see it as such. And so if they've called it off, it's a step in the right direction, right? You are trying to rebuild the party. You cannot rebuild the party by telling everybody to shut up. No, people have lots and lots of anger in them. It should come out. That's the only way peace comes.
I mean, party even when it soils the image of the party, is there a way that they can voice out?
No, party is not a human being. You understand? It's a collection of people. Each one has his own outlook. It's just sometimes the purposes coincide. That's all. It's not a human being for him to be what do you call gunenumasi. You understand? It is not a human being. If bad people are in it, you should take the bad people out and bring in good people. That is what you are. When you do that, you are bringing the image of the party up. You see, you can't leave the bad people in there and expect the party to do well, and they are still in charge. It won't work. It's just impossible to work. And so they should look at that. Allow people to say the head they have in their hearts, myself included. There's so many people like that. I walk around Kumasi and they behave as if I tell them something magically, they'll be calm, they'll be satisfied. They are frustrated. They don't know what to do. And you want these same people to go and vote for you, go ahead and do it quickly like that. Hush, hush, hush. You'll be surprised the next time you lose colossally again. Then what are you going to do? So allow people to speak. I'm not saying forever. The party cannot be disgraced if you are being honest. When did honesty become a disgrace? You tell me, what? Is it not the lies that's a disgrace? What has happened to a party? Lies, we say things we know are not true, we're stealing money. Look at the containers. That is what is disgracing the party, not anybody who is trying to bring sanity to it. The thievery and the gangsters and all the bad things they are doing. The party functionaries don't listen to anybody. They've all become like a gang. You understand? That is what is degrading the party, not the other way around.
Doc.
So if they didn't know, they should listen now.
Thank you
Allow
for
the
that.
people to speak. I'm not saying you should do it forever, but some things must come out.
You
And
say
some
the
party
people must not be
functionaries should
silenced.
arrested.
People who want to voice out must not be silenced. They should be given the opportunity to say what's on their heart,
Yes,
but not
some
forever.
things should come out.
Right.
It should come out. A party is not a secret society.
Prof, let me come to you on this one. And we know that every strong democracy needs a strong opposition. What advice then do you give to the NPP as they attempt to rebuild the party, as they say? According to the polls, one especially from Global Info Analytics, it's still not looking good for the opposition. From where you stand, what should they be thinking of?
Facts are stubborn things, and Doc was just mentioning some of the rot that went on within their party. And I think at the end of the day, there's no smoke without fire. Adua's comments is not in a vacuum. She had to come out and say all these things because she felt she was wronged. But I would take a more like a conciliatory approach, whereby I think the top officials of the party should rather look at meeting Adua just to be able to learn and probably better the party from that point of view, rather than going to give her punitive sanctions. If that happens, you are further making sure that those who could have spoke up would all keep quiet. And at the end of the day, like Doc said, it is the party that is going to lose. I also think that in a democracy, so long as when I speak and I actually do not, character assassinate somebody, or I say something that probably I have facts to substantiate, I should be given the benefit of the doubt. And that applies to any political party, whether it's MPP or NDC. But in this part of our world, you have some people who think because they are leadership of a political party or their leadership in a particular institution, they try to take the law into their hands. Yes, sometimes you temper justice with mercy, especially in cases whereby even if the person is wrong. So in this case, I think she didn't make all these comments in vacuum. She had a reason, and probably her back was pushed to the wall. So that is why she came out. Yeah.
And Prof, should the MPP be looking at a complete overhaul of its leadership structure, or would you say it's more of an ideology and policy realignment?
Well, I wouldn't say overhaul of the leadership structure. I think they should really, learn what really made them lose. Some of the things that didn't inure to the Ghanaian populace that made them lose. And then see, you have to come up with a problem before you solve it. Diagnose the problem and solve it. But if you are going to, stick your head in the sun like an ostrich and you are not willing to listen to the truth, you're not going anywhere. So I think they should really encourage all those people who agree with them or not, to tell them the truth, nothing but the truth. And then they can begin the healing process. But if you want to put bandage on an ulcer, it's not going to go anywhere.
All right. Thank you, Prof, for that. Let me come to Doc. And Doc, many believe that the party, the NPP party, has lost touch with the grassroots. How does the party begin to reconnect with the grassroots?
Well, they began to listen to their own lies. That's the problem. And if you tell a lie so many times, you believe it. Breaking the eight. Look, it tells you now that these party functionaries were incompetent, abysmally incompetent. This is the worst record, you understand? Yet they thought that was the best one, breaking eight. How is that possible? It shows you that the party itself, the party operatives, did not know what was going on. They began to believe their own lies. We are going to win this, and we've done this, and we've done that. One nation, we are one factory, whatever, go there, there's nothing. They did all of these for too long. They have come to believe it. And these people who did those things should be weeded out of the party. You can't leave them in there and still think the party will do better. No, you do worse, the same as you did before, if you are lucky. So you have to get rid of them. I can see so many people who should not be in the party. When 2016, when I was campaigning, I didn't have to tell anybody anything. Makutu will call me, Doc, where are you going now? I'm going to Asino. Okay, I'm going here. We'll meet in the evening. And you go. You don't ask for money from anybody. You help the best way you could. That's how it's supposed to be. The party has to have people who are committed to the success of the party, not people who just want money. That's what it became. When this president came, that's what the whole thing became, just looking for money. Looking for money. And even the money, it wasn't very good because you're giving money to go and share with the grassroots to help you with this stuff. Then they take the money and don't do anything. How is the party going to go get successful? No, it won't work that way. And if those people are still in the party, it's going to fail again. Maybe even more colossally this time.
Doc, thank you for that. Prof, I'll let you have the final, give us your final thoughts on this topic or the number of topics we've discussed, and then we can park it here for this conversation.
I would say we Ghanaians, including all the political parties, they should understand what I call the politics of the belly. You know, if the common man in the village or, cannot get food to eat or is struggling, can they go and vote? So, any political party should know that if they're in power today, they should be careful. They should take care of the people. And one of the most important things is making sure that they can eat. And we cannot do that. And you talk about highfalutin things, this and that. They are not interested in that. They are more concerned about what they can eat, how they can take care of their families, how they can pay school fees, and so on and so forth. So it should be a lesson. I think if the MPP learns seriously, and I highlight it seriously, from their mistakes that made them lose massively, then they can begin to come up. But if not, it's going to be like Doc said. It's going to be even worse. Yeah.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time this morning. I know next time we'll have a longer duration to really sink our teeth into some more pertinent issues. But I'm very grateful you could join us this morning on Sunrise.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Again, we were speaking with Dr. Richard Amakoba. He's a political scientist, and also Professor David Abdullahi, Senior Governance Advisor, African Parliamentary Network.